This week on the Aviators, Curtis explores the biggest single-engine biplane in the world, the Antonov AN-2. I look at how pilots are using the iPad in the cockpit. And the Devil Dog Squadron of the Commemorative Air Force shows us their B-25 bomber.
The Marines learned to skip bomb, and they would come 20 feet off the water right at those ships.
This is a Stearman Model 75. It was introduced in 1934 as a trainer aircraft. It weighs in at just under 2,000 pounds and it has a 7-cylinder, 220 horsepower radial engine. When most people picture a biplane, this may be the sort of image that comes to mind. Unless you're a Soviet aircraft engineer. The Antonov AN-2 is a biplane like the Stearman. And it has a single engine like the Stearman. And that's where the similarities end. The AN-2 is the largest single-engine biplane ever built. Designed by the Antonov Design Bureau, who seemed to enjoy designing large planes, it was first introduced in 1947 and was in continuous production until 2002, setting a record for the longest continually produced model of aircraft, a title now held by the Lockheed C-130. With an empty weight of 7,300 pounds, this beast of an aircraft is powered by an engine that's almost 5 times more powerful than the Stearman's.
It takes a big engine to pull a big airplane like this through the sky. In this case, the Russians have built a 1,000 horsepower 9-cylinder radial engine. It converts all that horsepower to thrust through a 12-foot 4-bladed propeller. This big engine comes with a big fuel bill. At takeoff, it's burning almost 2 gallons a minute, and cruising around at about 110 miles an hour, it burns almost 1 gallon a minute doing that.
The AN-2 was designed by the Soviets as a rugged, all-purpose aircraft. It's large enough to haul cargo or passengers, and robust enough to get in and out of any area.
This aircraft is just as at home landing on the muskeg or tundra as it is landing on asphalt. This big, robust landing gear has great big air oil shock absorbers here to cushion the landing, and as you can see, the tires are large enough to roll over small boulders. This aircraft's braking system is a bit unique. It's the same type of braking system we use on transport trucks today. That is, it's air brakes. One of the side benefits to having air brakes on your airplane is there's actually a compressor driven by the engine. If you have a flat tire, you can pump up your tire with the air with the engine running.
The aircraft's brakes help it to achieve very short takeoff and landing. While the numbers vary based on conditions, the AN-2 can take off in as little as 150 meters, or slightly less than 500 feet. And it can land in 170 meters, or just under 560 feet. In comparison, a tiny aircraft like the Stearman needs 600 feet just to get in the air. To achieve this, the aircraft is able to take off and land at low speeds.
This aircraft was designed to operate in the backcountry without runways or any other prepared surfaces to land on. It's designed to operate to take off and land really slow. These look like ailerons, but these are actually called flaperons. So like on a modern aircraft where the flaps come down and let the aircraft fly slower, in this airplane, when the pilot selects the flaps, the ailerons droop as well to slow it down that much more.
While it was designed by the Russians, the Antonov was also built under license throughout many communist countries. The aircraft's excellent backcountry performance made it an ideal choice even after the collapse of the Soviet Union.
This aircraft is designed to be totally self-sufficient wherever it goes, so the pilots needed a way to get up on top and put fuel in the aircraft. The engineers in this case actually built a ladder right into the side. Not only does this thing have a ladder built into the side to be self-sufficient, it's actually got its own fuel pump. Not designed to pump gas to the engine, but designed to pump gas from 45-barrel drums way down there on the ground up to these 6 50-gallon tanks in the upper wing. This aircraft was designed to carry a whole lot of stuff, whether it's 5,000 pounds of cargo, 12 passengers going somewhere, or in this case, 6 VIPs going to the destination of their choice.
This particular AN2 is in very good condition. By looking at it, you may think it's been a very well-maintained vintage aircraft. However, this AN2 was built in Poland in 1990. While that makes this aircraft very new, the instruments are all Soviet.
This is exactly how I would expect a Russian cockpit to look. There's rows and rows of identical switches, and while there's no hydraulic or electric assist for the controls, everything else in the aircraft is either electric or pneumatic. In the middle, you can see that there's 5 different levers to manage this single power plant, and below that are all the electric trim controls to make the aircraft fly hands off. This aircraft has a lot of stuff, but one of the things it doesn't have is a published stall speed. It's kind of interesting to think about, but the pilot's operating handbook, if you translated it to English, says if you lose orientation, simply put the aircraft in a full stall by pulling the stick all the way back and ride it into the ground. It actually descends slow enough that you'll survive the impact. Another thing about this aircraft that's kind of interesting to think about is that this great big slow lumbering aircraft is all designed to be flown in cloud. It's got instruments to tell you the attitude of the aircraft, the speed, even a proper chronometer to keep track of how long it's been since you crossed the last nav aid.
So the AN2 may not be the prettiest aircraft ever. It does not have the latest technology, and with a top speed of 100 knots, it's not the fastest. But the AN2 is a rugged design and will probably remain the world's largest single-engine biplane for years to come. Its lines are as sleek and sexy as an Italian sports car. It's been hewn from aerospace-grade aluminum. It contains the latest technological advances in its industry. This may sound like the latest in light sport or private aircraft, but no. This magical device is the Apple iPad 2. And you can use it to surf the internet, write emails, and watch movies and TV.
Now, obviously, this is all very good, but none of those things have anything to do with aviation. So how useful is the iPad to an aviator or an aviation enthusiast?
Well, you can use it to surf your favorite aviation websites, write emails to your friends about when you're going flying, and watch your favorite aviation TV show. So the iPad is very useful, and you can do aviation-related things with it. But can you use it in the cockpit?
In a word, yes.
Much like the rest of the world, aviators have been quick to embrace the iPad. Since its launch, there have been a myriad of apps made available that either complement or in some cases completely replace traditional pilot tools.
Right, so here you have some of the tools and reference material that a pilot might traditionally have in their flight bag. You've got your pilot's operating handbook, your aircraft journey log, an airport directory, checklists, IFR approach plates, an assortment of aeronautical charts, a moving map GPS, your computer for pre-flight planning, and a crossword puzzle to keep your passengers entertained on long flights. Now, if you were to weigh all this, it would total several pounds. But the iPad, on the other hand, comes in at a whopping 1.3 pounds. And with the appropriate apps, it can do essentially the same thing as all of this stuff, including the crossword puzzles.
So the weight savings alone could be considered revolutionary. But the question begs to be asked, does it actually work in the cockpit? Essentially, yes.
As you can see, we've chosen to mount our iPad on the yoke, but you can also mount it on the glare shield or on your knee board. There are tons and tons of applications for the iPad for aviation. There's Log 10 Pro, for example, which is a flight log, and you can keep track of all your flights. There's also one of my favorite, ForeFlight HD. This is good for pre-flight planning, filing your flight plan, watching your flight en route, checking the weather, and planning your arrivals because it does have approach plates. And switching between applications is really easy.
In addition, since a tablet is a microcomputer, it can do things that paper charts can't, like showing you where your airplane actually is. The blinking blue plane? That's us. And computerized charts can be updated, meaning you don't have to go out and buy new ones every 56 days. So the advantages of electronics over paper are clear. A tablet can do many things paper can't, but surely there must be a downside.
And there is. The iPad, of course, is an electronic device and therefore requires power. It does have 10 hours of battery life, and that's longer than most general aviation flights. Paper charts, on the other hand, don't require any power at all. But if you're flying at night, they do need something to illuminate them. So for the power argument, it's kind of a draw. On the durability side, paper has a clear advantage. Water and electronics don't play well together. So if you're flying in an open cockpit or you happen to spill your coffee on your iPad, it's not so great. But if you spill water on your charts, it's not the end of the world. And if you rip a paper chart, you can just tape it back together. And when you unfold it, you can just fold it back any which way you want.
Paper charts are also not as fragile as the iPad's glassy surface.
It won't break if you drop it.
And you'll have less reason to be annoyed when someone drops your paper charts in front of your nose wheel.
In fact, about the only thing that can absolutely destroy your paper charts is fire. And if there's something happening in your airplane where your charts are on fire, then you have bigger problems.
Now, the idea of a so-called electronic flight bag is nothing new. Starting in the early 90s, airlines such as FedEx and Lufthansa revolutionized their fleets by equipping aircraft with computers dedicated to acting as electronic flight bags.
Even prior to that, consumer electronics found their way into the cockpit. Portable GPS units and electronic flight bags have been around for years. Even some of their manufacturers, like Jeppesen, have ported that technology to iPad apps. So how does the iPad measure up against purpose-built electronic flight computers?
Well, for one thing, it is a consumer electronic, and it's not designed for use in an aircraft. Many developers have had to put in controls that allow the screen to dim lower than the default brightness settings allowed. Also, a glossy screen isn't the ideal choice for an in-cockpit display. Also, according to Apple's own specifications, the device is only rated to be used at altitudes up to 10,000 feet. The biggest advantage the iPad does have is price. Dedicated EFBs can cost $1,300 or more. The most expensive iPad comes in at under $850. But an interesting note about the different models of iPad. The cheapest models, which only have Wi-Fi connectivity, do not contain a GPS antenna. The more expensive Wi-Fi plus 3G models do. Besides the price, perhaps the biggest difference between the iPad and a moving map or EFB system is that Apple is not supplying the map or EFB software. These functions are dependent on third-party developers. With a dedicated EFB or moving map system, everything from the software to the design is purpose-built for that function. And if you already have a built-in glass cockpit, such as a Garmin or Aspen system, you may find some of the mapping and weather functions of the iPad a little redundant. Of course, a built-in glass cockpit is also going to far exceed the capabilities of any portable device.
So what does this all mean in the end? Should pilots get rid of their moving map systems and replace their paper charts and go out and get an iPad? Well, most general aviation pilots fly under Part 91 of the Federal Aviation Regulations. Essentially, that leaves the choice up to them. Now, we're not going to go into the details as to what makes and what doesn't make an electronic flight bag, but suffice to say, if you choose to use one, it should be securely mounted in the cockpit.
For non-general aviation pilots, replacing paper charts is a decision that's regulated by the FAA. According to reports, some U.S. Marine pilots have begun using digitized maps on an iPad instead of paper maps.
In February of 2011, the FAA authorized a charter company to use an iPad app in place of paper charts. Part of the testing for this was rapid decompression testing at altitudes up to 51,000 feet. Since then, some airlines have been looking at the iPad as an electronic flight bag. The only real danger of that is droves of commercial pilots addicted to Angry Birds.
Perhaps no other time in history has seen a greater advance in aviation technology in such a short period of time as the Second World War. Hundreds of thousands of aircraft were built and huge leaps were made in engines and aerodynamics. With the end of the war, there was little need for the surplus of military hardware. Many of the aircraft that took part in the war soon found themselves scrapped for raw materials or parts. In the hopes of preventing these aircraft and the crucial missions they conducted from being forgotten, the Commemorative Air Force was founded.
Well, it was founded in 1957 by a couple of guys that were big fans of warbirds or flew in the war themselves.
Stephen C. Brown is the current president of the Commemorative Air Force.
And what they saw happening is the Air Force was scrapping all of these airplanes. They were turning them into beer cans. And they saw it as a shame. There was nobody keeping one example of the airplanes that flew in World War II as representative for us to take a look at. So what they decided to do was start saving them. And one by one, they bought the very first P-51, which is red nose, which continues to fly to this day. And they decided to take one of each type of Allied airplane that flew in the war and save it. And not only save it to put it in a static museum, but to actually fly it. And that's why we became the world's largest flying museum.
Originally known as the Confederate Air Force, the Commemorative Air Force now has 152 flyable aircraft in their fleet. This includes Fifi, the last flying B-29 Superfortress, the type of aircraft that dropped the first atomic bomb on Japan. The restoration, repair, and maintenance of the CAF's aircraft is done entirely by volunteers.
Well, as you said, that's the most unique thing about the CAF. We do this all with member volunteers. There's just a few of us paid staff that really keep the organization going from a financial standpoint, a paperwork standpoint, a compliance standpoint. But the people that actually make these airplanes fly are all volunteers. Whether they put them together, they repair them, or they fly them, our volunteers are really the backbone of this organization. We're in 70 different units. We refer to them as wings or squadrons, and they're scattered within 27 states. And so our members operate really independently. Within the national framework, they operate independently at different locations around the country. Some units are small, may only have one small L-bird. Other units may have 10 airplanes and very large with a couple hundred members.
Among the CAF's member groups is Devil Dog Squadron, caretakers of this North American B-25 Mitchell bomber.
This airplane is based after the VMB 612 group, and they used to go out at night in the Pacific with radar.
Beth Jenkins is the pilot in command of the B-25 Devil Dog.
And they would find the ships at night and down the ships. This airplane was refurbished by a man named Ozzie Parrish, and he was with the VMB 612 group. And he wanted to remember his friends and honor his friends from the number 3 ship. They had gone on 22 missions. In those 22 missions, she had downed 3 merchant ships and 1 imperial ship, went out on her 23rd mission and never came back. So when they were able to restore this airplane, they based it after the VMB 612 number 3 ship, and they also put the nose art on. They didn't get to have nose art when they flew in the Pacific because at night the moon would reflect their location. So they put the Marine mascot on there, the Devil Dog, to let people know that Marines had B-25s.
The B-25 may be most famous for its part in the Doolittle raid, where 16 Army Air Force B-25s took off from the USS Hornet, carrying out bombing runs on Tokyo. This was less than 5 months after the attacks on Pearl Harbor and was a major blow to Japanese morale and a major boost to ours. But the B-25 was not used exclusively by the Army Air Force. The Navy took delivery of some B-25s, however most of them were given to the Marines.
Well, the Army Air Corps gave 706 B-25s to the Navy, and the Navy didn't know what to do with them, so the Marines said, we'll take them. And they learned early on that you can't drop bombs on a moving target from 8,000 feet. So the Marines learned to skip bomb, and they would come 20 feet off the water right at those ships, pull up and skip the bombs into the ships. and they would be shot at. So the crews started slapping 50 caliber machine guns because the bombardier nose only had one 50 caliber machine gun at the front. So they were getting shot at, so they started slapping the machine guns on the airplane so they could help protect themselves.
While there were many variants of the B-25, most of the aircraft had a transparent nose section for the bombardier. Hearing of Marines adapting their B-25s, North American developed the gunner nose seen on the Devil Dog. With 12 forward-facing 50 caliber machine guns, the Marines could cut a ship in half. Nearly 10,000 B-25s were built, but there's few more than 100 left today, most of which are on static display.
We have about 25 flying. There's about 30 in total in restoration. And the Commemorative Air Force has 5 flying and 1 in restoration. It's a lot of work, raising money for it, keeping her flying, maintaining it, keeping people together. And so we have a good group with the Devil Dog Squadron. We've got 45 members, and we all work hard keeping her flying.
As a military aircraft, B-25s had full crews dedicated to their maintenance and upkeep. They also had the manufacturing power of an entire nation behind them. Today, Beth and the Devil Dog Squadron take on the task by themselves, also dealing with the challenge of maintaining an aircraft that's nearly 70 years old.
Well, in the last 4 years, we've put on 2 new engines. The left wing's been off with the new wing spar. The tail's been off twice, correcting corrosion. We've put quite a bit of money in this airplane to keep her flying. They were designed 5 years, 6 years max. They weren't designed to be 65 years old.
Having a large fleet of aircraft is certainly a big advantage for the CAF, as they're able to use their national resources to find parts.
Well, we source parts through the different arenas within the warbird world, or we manufacture them ourselves. There's a lot of different ways. You know, there's parts repositories all over. We're always looking for them, even the rare ones. Some of them we get the manufacturers, the original manufacturers, to help us remanufacture them. We've got Boeing helped us remanufacture wing spars for different airplanes in the past. So we go to all lengths to try to make sure we get the parts we need.
Of course, the thing that sets the Commemorative Air Force apart is the fact that they not only have a large collection of historical aircraft, but also ones that are airworthy. This has allowed people like Beth to fly aircraft they may never have been able to.
I think I was born in the wrong era. I just love the music from the 40s. I reminisce of what these 20-year-olds could have been doing in this airplane and with being shot at and the courage that they had to fight for the freedom we have today. And this is the passion that all our members have, is to get this history out to people and get these young kids to learn history by the flying of the airplane and touching the airplane and getting inside the airplane.
Well, I think what we're most proud of is our mission. The fact that what we're doing is not frivolous. We're not just a bunch of guys out here flying around because we enjoy flying. We're out here telling a story, using these airplanes as tools to instruct the next generation. Everyone talks about the greatest generation. If we're going to replicate the greatest generation with the next generation, this is a great tool to do it with.
For more information on today's segments, visit www.theaviators.tv. From our official home at the Whitman Regional Airport in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, we'll see you next time on The Aviators.